Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Crown and Central Agency meeting. I'm Fred Bradshaw, the chair, and substituting for Warren McCall, we have Cassie Sproul. We also have with us Stephen Bonk, Glenn Hart, Nancy Hepner, Lisa Lambert, and Hugh Nerline. We have two documents to table, CCA 82-28, Crown Investments Corporation of Saskatchewan Significant Transaction Report Divestiture of CIC Asset Management Inc.'s investment in Terra Green Fuels Inc. and CCA 83-28, Minister responsible for Crown Investments Corporation of Saskatchewan Significant Transaction Report Sask Power's acquisition of ATCO's 50% interest in the Quarry cogeneration station. Committee members, before you have a copy of today's meeting notice, which is our agenda. Any comments on today's agenda? Ms. Sproul?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I have a request for the committee this morning, and it's nothing to do with SGI, so you guys just chill for a couple minutes. Thank you. But this is for the committee. We are planning, as you know, Mr. Chair and committee members, the finalization of annual reports for a number of CIC subsidiaries, and two of them are the Saskatchewan Immigrant Investor Fund, and the other one that I'm talking about today is the First Nations Métis Fund. And we are hoping, as those funds wind down, we're hoping to be able to have the manager of the fund, who is Westcap Management, and we were wondering if the committee would approve calling a witness, the CEO of Westcap Management, Mr. Grant Cook, under Section 120 sub 2. And so, you know, he's managed a significant amount of taxpayers' dollars and has been paid, I think, over $10 million to manage those funds. So he has the direct knowledge of what is in those funds, and it would really be helpful, I think, for committee members to be able to have him come and appear before the committee. So here's the motion. I'll read it. That this committee requests that the CEO of Westcap Management, Mr. Grant Cook, appear before the committee as a witness when the committee meets to consider the annual reports for the Saskatchewan Immigrant Investor Fund and the First Nations and Métis Fund, to answer questions from the committee about the management of those funds by Westcap Management. So I so move.
Ms. Sproul has moved that this committee request that the CEO of Westcap Management, Mr. Grant Cook, appear before the committee as a witness when the committee meets to consider the annual reports for the Saskatchewan Immigrant Investor Fund and the First Nations and Métis Fund, to answer questions from the committee about the management of those funds by Westcap Management. All of those in favor of the motion say aye. And all of those.
This is the first we've seen of it. Can we take a recess and just ponder this for a second instead of voting on it right away?
Certainly. Just we'll take a quick recess here.
Nancy, just some context. We did speak to the chair last week and sent him a letter requesting this, so this is just a follow-up to that.
Well, welcome back, committee members. I'm going to reread the motion again. And it's moved by Kathy Sproul from Saskatoon to Tana that this committee requests that the CEO of Westcap Management, Mr. Grant Cook, appear before the committee as a witness when the committee meets to consider the annual reports for the Saskatchewan Immigrant Investor Fund and the First Nations and Métis Fund to answer questions from the committee about the management of these funds by Westcap Management. All of those in favor of the motion.
Chair, before you call the vote, I'd like to ask a couple of questions, please.
Go ahead, Mr. Hart.
Is Mr. Koch required to appear before with the minister on estimates? Is there any? When does this fund, besides this committee, at this time, when does it come? Is it part of the budgetary approval process in budget estimates or anything like that? Is there any other opportunities for members to get more information and from Mr. Koch and the minister responsible at any other time? Or is this the only opportunity that before this committee? I wonder if someone can answer that. Perhaps Ms. Sproul could speak to that because she's quite involved in examination of budget estimates and that sort of.
Thank you, and I would defer to our clerk as well. But as far as I know, the only time we consider the annual reports for SIF, SIIF, and the First Nations Métis Fund is in this committee when we're considering the CIC annual report. And we're currently 2 years behind, so there's 2 years that need to be considered. We're looking at February. So under the estimates process, anytime I've been with CIC and estimates, there would be nobody present from Westcap Management at that time.
Perhaps this is a question for the clerk. Has there never been, in the past number of years, I've never been part of, this is my first time being part of this committee. I've been a member of a number of committees, but never this one. So has there ever been management people from this particular fund in the past 5 years or 10 years that you appear before the committee? Is there any history of this?
I guess we defer that to the minister, Mr. Hart.
We haven't.
And
So what you're saying, Chair, is that the minister reports to the committee on this, but the minister never brings the management team of that fund to estimates as they do, you know, with SGI and so on, the presidents and those sorts of things. Is that what?
They have not. They have not in the past.
Okay, no, just for clarification. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we have the motion before us. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. I declare the motion lost.
You can go on.
This morning. Oh, I guess.
We can now.
Okay, right now we have Ms. Rancourt is substituting for Mr. McCall. This morning, the committee will be considering SGI's annual reports, including the 2018-19 SGI Canada Annual Report, 2018-19 Saskatchewan Auto Fund Annual Report, consideration of 2018 SGI Canada Insurance Savings Limited Annual Report, consideration of the 2018 Coachman Insurance Company Annual Report, consideration of the 2018 SGI Superannuation Plan Annual Report. Minister Hargrave, would you please introduce your officials and make your opening comments? And when the officials speak, could you please state your name for Hansard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Given the wide range of topics that we may be covering this morning, I have a number of officials here from SGI. First would be Andrew Cartmel, President and CEO of SGI, Jeff Stefan, Chief Financial Officer, Penny McCune, Chief Operating Officer of the Auto Fund, Tamara Earhart, Chief Human Resources Officer, Kwei Kwei, Vice President of Traffic Safety Services, Ryan Smith, Vice President of Appraisal, Salvage, and Technical Claims Services, and Carol Nohe, who's new to the SGI, Senior Director, no, she's not, I'm just kidding, Senior Director of Auto Fund Strategic Support, Partnership, and Insurance Programs. During the 2018-19 fiscal year, both the Saskatchewan Auto Fund and SGI Canada showed strong financial performance. SGI Canada achieved premium growth of 13.4%, strongly outperforming the industry average of 6.7%. Premiums grew in all 5 provinces where the company does business. In total, SGI Canada wrote $919 million in premium, and in doing so, achieved an important milestone for the company. For the first time ever, more than 40% of SGI Canada's premiums, $371 million worth, was written outside of Saskatchewan. With growth in mind, SGI Canada launched commercial property insurance in Ontario in January. Another new product line was launched last November. To protect business owners against the escalating risk of cyber attack and data breaches used to commit identity theft, SGI Canada introduced Cyber One and data compromise coverages as part of its commercial property line of products. It's one example of the company's efforts to identify emerging technology trends to better serve customers. Moving over to the Auto Fund is financially strong with stable insurance rates. It now offers the lowest auto insurance rates in Canada, all while providing comprehensive injury benefits for customers who need them. In 2018-19, the Auto Fund remained dedicated to improving safety on Saskatchewan roads and highways. A significant event occurred last April, the Humboldt Broncos tragedy. 16 lives were lost in that bus crash, and another 13 people were seriously injured. Prior to that, SGI had already been examining ways to strengthen training requirements and curriculum for those wishing to drive a semi. But the Humboldt Broncos tragedy highlighted the importance of getting it right. On March 15th of this year, Saskatchewan implemented mandatory training for commercial semi-drivers with a minimum of 121.5 hours of training, along with the standardized curriculum and stronger testing. And SGI is also actively participating in the development of a national standard. In the fall of 2018, we implemented stronger legislation to combat impaired driving, including zero tolerance for drug-impaired driving and tougher penalties for impaired drivers transporting children. We also introduced and passed rideshare legislation to give people in the province another safe ride option. And now we have rideshare companies operating in our province. Last fall, we also announced the photo speed enforcement pilot would continue permanently, as results demonstrated improved safety on our roads. We also changed the funding formula for PSE revenue so all communities around the province could benefit. Now there is a committee to assess applications for traffic safety projects as well as applications for new cameras. So far, almost $500,000 has been approved for 27 projects. These efforts were supplemented by SGI's continued investment in traffic safety enforcement and several award-winning traffic safety awareness campaigns. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and now we'd be happy to answer whatever questions you may have.
Well, thank you, Minister. Are there any questions? Ms. Brancourt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want to thank all the officials for coming here today, this morning. This is the second time I've had an opportunity to address the officials of SGI, and I spent a great amount of time reviewing these annual reports, and I found it absolutely fascinating because business is the first post-secondary degree I got. So learning more about and getting back into that realm was very interesting, and I think that SGI, it offers such a variety of programs. There's a lot to talk about within this hour and a half, and so I'm thankful that a lot of the officials are here that'll be able to answer some of these questions. Although I reviewed these annual reports, I still have many questions because this is also new to me, and it's good to have your guys' feedback with regards to that. So I'm going to start my questions this morning with regards to staffing. So I was wondering how many current FTEs are employed with SGI?
The total as of October 31st, 2019 was 2,045.
Okay, so that increased quite substantially since the March 31st, 2019 number. I believe at that time it was 19,055. Can you explain where these increased employees are?
Predominantly with SGI Canada, and it's spread out throughout all the different provinces that we have here. So, yeah, we've gone everywhere. There's been an increase throughout. I mean, the total number in Saskatchewan, for example, is 1,910. Alberta's 45. Manitoba's 12, and Ontario's 78 people for the 2,045.
Okay, and how many of these positions are out of scope?
487 positions are out of scope.
And the last time we met, it was announced that the March 31st, 2019 number of out-of-scope positions was 454. So there seems to be, throughout the years, I've kind of broken it down, and there's been quite an increase of out-of-scope positions. Can you explain that?
One of the biggest reasons is Ontario is not unionized, and so they're all considered out of scope, and so is Alberta the same. Alberta's not unionized, so they're any new employees there in those two provinces are considered as to be out of scope, and that's where we've had lots of increase over the years. That's where, as I say, with SGI Canada, that's why we had over 40% of our premiums were written out of province, and that's where our growth has been, and so that's why they would show us as out-of-scope employees.
Is every other province that's offering these services, I believe it's Alberta, Manitoba, BC, and Ontario, all those employees, are they out of scope or are some of them in scope?
Some of them. Yeah. Well, Saskatchewan are unionized.
Okay, thank you. And out of all the full-time employment, are there any positions that are currently vacant?
There's always vacant positions that aren't being filled.
Number 10.
Right. Yeah, the vacancy numbers is simply, as I said, there's always vacancies. It's just a point in time caused by the churn of employee movement. So is there a major amount of an abnormal amount of vacancies? No.
And what percentage of your staff self-disclose as being Indigenous or having a disability?
October 31st, 2019, there's 218 employees that self-declare as Indigenous. This makes up 9.9% of SGI's workforce.
And do you have the number of individuals who disclose as having a disability?
And we do. As of October 31st, 2019, there's 154 employees that self-declare as having a disability. This makes up 6.99% of SGI's workforce.
And so when I was reading in, I believe it was SGI Canada's annual report, it talked a little bit about an employee engagement score that's derived from the SGI Employees Survey. And that rated at 52% in the 2018-2019. And the goal reported in this report was to have that improved by 1 point by 2019 and 2020. So what is the plan to reach this goal?
I'm Ray Earhart. I'm the Chief Human Resources Officer with SGI. In terms of engagement, we've been doing a lot of work on culture within our organization over the last 4 years. We have many strategies to improve communication and leadership, and we have invested in training to support our staff. We just recently conducted our employee engagement survey, and we had 80% return rate, which is an increase from 62% the last time. Don't have the results yet, but we are thrilled to see that many employees participating in that survey.
Within this survey, did it highlight some areas that staff may be unhappy with? Or like, would there be some key areas that they indicated they would like SGI to maybe work on with regards to more satisfaction in the workplace?
I think communication and leadership, and as of right now, of course, our contract is not currently settled, and so that is one issue that we saw at our town hall meetings across the province this year, and that could have some impact on the results. But I don't know the detail of the results yet because we just conducted the survey. Oh, the last one. Yeah, training, communication, leadership. Those would be the focus areas.
And with regards to communication, what are they hoping to have more of with regards to the leadership to provide communication to them?
More open and honest and transparent communication from leadership.
And with regards to, you also mentioned leadership, are they hoping to be able to have more opportunities for advancement within SGI, or what are you saying with regards to leadership?
I think career progression and career management is certainly one thing that is always on employees' minds. There are lots of opportunities in our organization because our vacancy rate continues to churn, and people do promote quite often within our organization. I don't think that that's a major issue within our workforce.
And you did mention the fact that the collective agreement, I believe in the annual report here, it says that it ended December 31st of 2017. So it's almost going on 2 years without having a collective agreement signed. So can you tell me how that process has been going?
Negotiations have been ongoing. It has been going well. We don't have an estimated timeline on completion, but I'm optimistic.
Because I was reading in the annual report, it said that there hasn't been a work stoppage or whatever the terminology would be since 1940s, I believe it was. So it would be nice to have that settled and resolved in a timely fashion. So my other question is, has there been any staff that's been seconded to Executive Council in the past year?
Andrew Cartmel, no.
Thank you. I'm going to talk a little bit about the auto fund now. So there was some discussion with regards to the new automated license plate readers and the fact that SGI has, I believe, funded 77 new automated license plate readers, and some of it went to the protection and response team, and some went to the combined traffic services Saskatchewan. Can you have a breakdown of how many were allocated to each of those teams?
total across the province, there's 171. We don't have the numbers we have the numbers for the CTSS, it was 52, but we don't have the number for the other one. But the total number across the province is 171.
So within that number of 171, would 52 of those being with the combined traffic services be the total number from that 171, or is it from the 77 new automated license plates?
From the 171, it's minus 52, so that's what else is split around between the municipal police forces.
So the 171, that would be municipal police forces, protection and response team, the combined traffic services, Saskatchewan, and does that also include our CMP?
CTS.
CMP as well, yes it is. Conservation, and some conservation officers as well. They have some as well.
Thank you. And SGI had also funded 30 additional positions for the combined traffic services Saskatchewan. Do you have a breakdown of how much that cost with those additional 30 positions?
There's an approximation of for the entire CTSS from SGI is $10 million.
How many members are on the combined traffic services?
Yeah, we fund half of them. There's a total number of CTSS of 120, and we fund 60 of them.
Okay. And I was reading also how SGI announced a new car seat grant program for nonprofit organizations. I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit more about this program.
We 4 times a year we do a call for a grant of $2,500, and we invite nonprofit organizations to apply for these car seats, and then they can use the car seats during car seat clinics. Encourage people to use the car seats, and these are used as giveaways during these car seats clinics.
So within this year, or when did this program start, actually?
This program started, I think it was last year, we started that program. Yep.
And since you started, how many car seats were given to nonprofit organizations?
I don't know the number offhand. A car seat's about roughly between $100 and $200. So $2,500 will buy probably about 10 or 20 of those car seats, depending on where you get a good deal.
Yeah, I think, like, I was really interested in that because that does become a barrier for some people who find purchasing a car seat that's a big ticket item for them, and so to have SGI help a lot of these nonprofit organizations provide that, I think that's a wonderful initiative. So do you have a breakdown of maybe who receive some of these seats, or?
I don't know off the top of my head, but we can find that out for you.
Okay, perfect. And so it was an application process that happened 4 times?
4 times a year. Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you. And again, I think this was a really good idea, and I hope to see this maybe expanded in the future, because it would be, we want to make sure children are traveling safely in vehicles, and if parents are having a tough time buying good quality car seats, it's important as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
So in the annual report, it also said there was a number of improvements in the past year to better serve customers. Can you give me a little bit of a breakdown of what those were?
Just a clarification, is that Auto Fund or SGI Canada?
That's Auto Fund.
Auto Fund.
Pardon me? Okay. Penny McEwen. We have a very significant focus on the customer for the Auto Fund, actually company-wide. One of the main things we do is we have a customer surveying tool that gives us feedback on how our customers are feeling about a variety of our services. So that really helps to direct us on where to focus. We've done a lot of training with our staff on expectations of customers, on how to provide a better experience, including empathy, particularly at the claims time. We've done a lot of work to bring more technical training to our staff, and we're looking to identify more areas within claims in the Auto Fund where special training and tools are needed to help them do their jobs better. So on the claims side, the fatalities unit was one of the examples that, unfortunately, with the Humboldt crash, we were able to, I guess, kind of prove the value of the unit. It was a very unfortunate situation, but our staff came through with flying colors. We got lots of accolades from the family, from the families. And so that's the type of thing we're doing. We're trying to really focus on care and also give them the technical background they need to do their jobs. So it's something we talk a lot about. As Tamara mentioned, it's part of the culture, and there's a lot of discussion about how we can show up for our customers. So.
Thank you. And I could imagine that a lot of times these situations are sensitive in nature, especially when people are going to have a claim. And I was also reading that, and I don't know if this is what you were referring to, but a pilot program that was made permanent with a focus on better serving families dealing with a claim in which a loved one has died. Is that the program that you're referring to?
Yes, yes. So we're trying to be very sensitive to what the families are going through, and we're even expanding beyond insurance on what types of things they have to go through at that time. We're trying to get out, like with the Humboldt crash, we called the hospitals, we called the association and let them know what the benefits were, what care and support is available when the families are ready. So we try and be very proactive in situations like that.
Is there a certain unit that specifies in dealing with those situations, or is that spread out across the province? There's just individuals in each of the locations?
We used to do it by individuals in each location, but fortunately, there's not a high number of fatalities, so sometimes our adjusters wouldn't get a fatality claim, so it's hard to get good at it. So we did train a smaller number that take all fatalities in the province. After the Humboldt crash, we had to add more people to it for a while just to get through that. But yeah, that's really kind of the specialty that we're aiming for, is to really make sure that when we have sensitive claims like that, they go to a person who's really well trained and can really help the customers.
Can you give me an example of some of the training that they would have in order to provide that service?
So we make sure that they understand all of the benefits that are available to the families, the surviving families, as well as all the things that we can do to help them through that particular time in their life. We have a variety of partners that we work with and make sure that they're also aware of the benefits. Our people will go out to their homes and talk to them. They don't make them come into the office for appointments. So it's just adding that extra level of care. We put together a special packet of all the information that they might find useful, and we leave it with them. So whether it's benefits or all the paperwork you have to do when someone passes. So it's kind of a more holistic approach to be a support system for them.
Yeah. I think that's a really great program. You know, it's really needed, and when people are in those situations, they need a little bit of extra support. So I think that's great that you guys have implemented that. So thank you for giving me that information. Yeah. In 2017, the Auto Fund recorded the lowest number of traffic fatalities in 6 decades. How does this compare to the numbers in 2018?
Well, in 2018, there was 129, and there was 102. Actually, the number was 100, finished off for 17. It was 104, not 102. The most significant impact of that, of course, was the Humboldt Broncos tragedy. I mean, with 16 deaths there. So we feel that significant progress has been made over the past couple of years in regards to fatalities on our highways. I mean, 129 is 129 too many, as we all know. But the 10-year average, we're down substantially on the 10-year average, and we're very optimistic that that number will continue to go down with the awareness that we have and the laws that we've changed with impaired driving, by bringing rideshare to this province, by the laws and regulations that we're changing with in regards to distracted driving, because distracted driving is a leading cause of deaths and injuries as well. I mean, in 2018, there were 22 deaths from distracted driving, which is a totally preventable cause. So between that and impaired driving, if we can continue to drive down those numbers, which we're optimistic that we can by continuing our pressure and our awareness campaigns and our education, we feel strongly that we are on the right track. We just ask the people of Saskatchewan to be guided accordingly. I mean, everybody be aware that the highways are dangerous, and it's not be careful out there. Don't drive distracted. Don't drive impaired by drugs or alcohol.
And I also reviewed the auditor's report as well, and I know we'll have an opportunity to talk about that at another committee, but one of the things I noticed was that a goal set out by SGI was by August of 2020, a 30% reduction in injuries and fatalities from 2010 to 2014, July to June averages. I was just wondering, what were those averages, and what are you doing to reach this goal?
We do have our targets on our balanced scorecard for the 30% reduction in injuries and fatalities, and we did hit that. I don't have the actual averages here, but I have the actual numbers. So, what? Oh, we do have them?
Do we have the balanced scorecard?
But basically, we took an average over, is it a 3-year average, Quay, or 5-year? 3-year, okay. And we We were at 130 fatalities in 2014, and we did hit our 33% reduction there, and injuries were even more significant. Okay.
That was scorecard.
Okay. Okay, so the reduction in injuries over the baseline, the target was 28% reduction in injuries, and the result was a 37% reduction in injuries. So
The numbers there, Pam.
Yes.
69 something is the number of injuries, that's the baseline.
Oh, here, okay. Okay, the baseline was, we started at 6,867 injuries, and the actual result was we were down to 4,336. For fatalities, the baseline was 158 for the 2018-19, and the actual result was 135. Fatalities have a tendency to fluctuate because the number is smaller, but we are definitely seeing a downward trend. And so we're liking what we're seeing on both.
Okay, thank you. I was also reading about how there was some changes in board members with regards to SGI, and in the annual report, it said that there was 2 new board members, but 4 were outgoing members. Is there a plan to replace the other 2 vacant spots?
Well, we're at the full complement of board members right now, and it's just a natural term. Some people resign, some people move, and some people just sort of after a couple of terms have served and are replaced. But it's on a regular basis, and we're at full complement of board members currently.
How many board members do you have?
Yeah, 12 board members.
And I'm sorry, I'm not aware of how are they appointed, or do they apply? And then do they have a certain amount a year term, or can you tell me a little bit more about the details of how board members are selected?
They're normally appointed for a 3-year term, and normally the board looks to try to, and they are appointed, but the board tries to look and see what they need, basically an accountant, maybe an HR individual, maybe somebody from the agriculture industry because we're involved in that. And lawyers, of course.
Gender diversity.
Gender diversity. We work on gender diversity to try to ensure that that's there. It's a and yet have some knowledge of the industry, and so we work on that on an annual basis because they all don't mature at the same time. They're to ensure continuity on the board. There's only a couple, maybe a year that come up, 2 or 3 a year that come up for a renewal or to be replaced.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the automated speed enforcement program, because we know that was something that was a pilot project, but now has decided to become a more permanent program. And so I was wondering how many of these automated speed enforcement locations are there, and where are they?
In Regina, there's one on a ring road. There's one in a number of school zones in Regina. There are about 4 in total. There's one in school zones in Saskatoon, one on Circle Drive. There are 2 devices on Highway 1 East near Moose Jaw. and then there's one in Moose Jaw school zones right now.
And so would that be 9 in total or 8?
1, 2. I have to count my fingers. 8.
8. Is there a plan to expand this program?
The program is not necessarily going to be expanded, but all requests, municipalities are allowed to request additional cameras if they want, or new cameras locations, and each one of them will be looked at. There's no plan to radically increase the number of cameras that are out there. In fact, there's a couple that are no longer there that were there in the past, be it Martinsville and Warman. Both those cameras have been removed.
And so have there been municipalities or enforcement agencies who have been requesting this program?
Yes, there's a request. There's requests from several areas for additional cameras.
So what is the cost of delivering this program, and how does that compare to what the benefit is?
Data quick.
Yeah, the program self-funds through the fines, and so the fines come in, and the expenses are taken off the top. Then a certain portion of the fines, 25% of the fine, then goes to the GRF, and then 50% of the remaining goes into to the municipality where it's located, and the other 50% of that goes into what's called the Traffic Safety Fund now, and where other municipalities that don't have a camera can apply for funds for traffic safety. And as I mentioned in my opening comments, the first tranche, because this is new, the first tranche was about $500,000, and it went into 27 communities, of which yours and my community was one of them that received $50,000 for safety funds.
So if this program self-funds itself, like it pays for itself, what would be the holdback of putting more of these cameras in the different communities?
Well, we don't view it as a revenue generator, because we don't want that, and yet we just want locations where there's where it's about safety. So we look at areas and where there's been lots of incidents, lots of accidents, injuries, and or deaths. And school zones obviously is because of our children. I mean, that's why we're quite heavily swayed into school zones. But it's about safety throughout the province, not just not just a revenue generator. We look at the data, and when people are requesting, and we've had some requests for additional cameras, we look at the data for where they think they want a camera, and if the data isn't there, then that request is denied. But we do, and if we don't have the data on it, we look for the data. But it's all about safety. It's not about a revenue generation for the municipalities or for the Traffic Safety Fund. It is about safety on our roads and in our school zones.
And I would think that a lot of people see these programs as also being about safety, you know, and we know that there's the goal of having 0 speeding fines, which would accumulate to 0 crashes. And so I want to talk a little bit about a stat that I was reading about. It says in 2017, speeding accounted for 8% of the total fatal crashes. Speed-related fatal collisions are more prevalent on high-speed highways or rural roads, which is 69%. So is there a breakdown of this percentage of how many of those were on the highways or on rural roads?
It's a breakdown of what?
the 69% of the fatal collisions that happened, it says here that they were on high-speed highways or rural roads.
We'll get that data for you. We don't know it offhand.
Because when we're talking about reducing fatalities on roads, it looks like reducing speeding will help, especially if it's at 8% of the fatalities that are recorded.
Bit of clarification on that. So we do have the data. We know where the accidents happen. We know where the injuries and fatalities happen across the province, which highways, which intersections. And that does determine where we put photo speed enforcement, where the combined traffic safety services, where they focus their efforts. So that we have a really solid database of information to know what the trouble spots are in the province, and then we do focus on them, if that's what your question was. So we do have lots of detailed data available to us to determine where we need to focus our efforts.
And when you say focus your efforts, in what manners are those efforts? It can't be just the speed enforcement program because that's only in 8 locations.
Right. So we fund the half of the combined traffic safety services unit. So there's 120 officers. It's a big province. And so working with them, we help guide where they want to focus their enforcement efforts. So when you think about traffic safety, there's awareness, enforcement, and legislation. So our government has been very supportive in terms of legislation and regulation. We have some of the toughest laws in Canada with respect to drinking and driving, distracted driving, those sorts of things. So that's a good deterrent. We have an awareness campaign program that we focus on to make sure the citizens are aware of the consequences of drinking and driving or distracted driving. And then we have enforcement. And it's a big expense for SGI to put $10 million into the traffic safety unit that surveys the province. So we work with them to guide them as to where they want to do enforcement so that we have a higher likelihood of calming traffic down and changing behavior.
Okay, thank you. Going back to the automated speed enforcement program, who is the service provider that maintains these devices?
It's a company called Conduent out of Alberta.
And how do you ensure that they are maintaining the integrity?
Excuse me?
How do you ensure that they're maintaining the integrity of these cameras in the program?
These cameras are tested on almost a daily basis by commissioners to ensure that they are working as per specifications. So every time they go and download information, they actually do a test of the unit to ensure that it's working well.
Okay, thanks. And with reading some of the information the auditor had with regards to this program, she made reference to rejected violations. Can you give me a bit of a breakdown of what a rejected violation would be?
Well, if the camera is unable to read a plate because the plate is dirty or the plate is covered by a hitch, the plate is obscured by something else, maybe there's a glass covering over the plate, it goes into a rejected column. We like to ensure that if a ticket is issued to a registered vehicle owner, it is the right ticket to the right vehicle, and there is some validity around it. So the police are very, very particular when it comes to the tickets that they approve, because we just want to ensure that the tickets are right tickets going to the right people.
And there's also a time frame that is expected to send those tickets. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
With the program design, we aim for 7 days turnaround from the identification of the violation and right through to the police for vetting and for them to ship it out to the offender.
And what percentage of these tickets are actually being sent out in that time frame?
I don't know offhand. The auditor looked at our processes, and I think they were quite satisfied with the way the police were handling it at this point in time.
And there was also some concern about issuing speeding fines for out-of-province speeders, and the auditor indicated that that wasn't consistent. Can you give me some background on that?
When the program started, the RCMP and the City of Moose Jaw designed a component where those police forces were able to identify out-of-province vehicle violators and send them tickets. The City of Regina and the City of Saskatoon, as of the time the auditor did his report, were not doing so. As of now, the City of Regina are issuing out-of-province violations, and the City of Saskatoon Police Service has indicated to us that they're working on the processes to start doing that before the end of the year.
Is there some problems or issues with regards to issuing those tickets? What would be the delay of doing that?
It's not problems and issues. I think the processes are very different. For in-province tickets, SGI has the database for that. We have all the information, so it's a fairly easy process for us to match the plate to the registered owner and get those tickets issued. For out-of-province tickets, special arrangements have to be made through either CPIC or a program called IRE, where we share registered owners' information across Canada to do so. And I can't answer for the City of Regina Police or Saskatoon City Police, but they did not start it when Moose Jaw and the RCMP did it. But they are right now, or at least Regina is, and Saskatoon will be starting before the end of the year.
And how do they issue a ticket to a non-registered vehicle?
Like a non-Saskatchewan vehicle or a non-registered vehicle?
A non-registered vehicle.
If there's no registration, there is no information on the registered owner, so it will be one of those rejected tickets. It has nowhere to go.
All right, thank you. I'm going to ask some questions now about SGI Canada. So I was reading about the different brokers that SGI Canada has throughout Saskatchewan and the other provinces. It said that there was 219 brokers operating in Manitoba, Alberta, BC, and Ontario. I don't know if that number is still accurate, but I was wondering if you had a breakdown of the brokers in each province.
We don't have that information, but we can get that back to you. For sure.
Okay, thank you. And I've noticed that SGI Canada has been expanding in the different provinces throughout the years. Is there still a plan on expanding? And if so, what's the goal and what are your plans to do that?
Do you want me to? As part of our geographic diversification strategy, we have goals to grow the proportion of our business outside of Saskatchewan faster than the proportion inside. So the minister mentioned in his opening remarks that we achieved during the 18-19 fiscal year, we achieved our goal of hitting 40% of our business outside of Saskatchewan and 60% inside. Currently, we have a long-term goal of a 50-50 mix of business, Saskatchewan, non-Saskatchewan. We're currently, 42 or 43% outside of Saskatchewan and the remainder inside. So we do have a long-term goal to spread risk across the country, which is a really important principle in insurance. Spread of risk is important because it's very unusual for a storm to start in British Columbia and hit every province as it goes across the country. So by having business in a number of different provinces, we lessen the risk of things like storms and natural catastrophes, and that's the reason for it.
So if the goal is, the longer-term goal is to have 50%, do you think it'll be more of expanding your business within the existing provinces you already provide business to, or are you looking at maybe going into other provinces?
Currently, we have no plans to expand beyond the 5 provinces that we operate in. We have lots of potential to grow in our 5 provinces. I wouldn't say that we wouldn't necessarily expand beyond that in a number of years, but we've got a lot of opportunity to grow substantially in provinces like Ontario, Manitoba, and British Columbia.
And when I look at the premium revenue, it increased in every province last year, but the one that I found was most notable was in British Columbia. It increased the majority of all the other provinces. Can you explain that increase?
A large part of that was due to an arrangement we have with, it's a managing general agency called Westland Insurance. They were operating as a small provincial insurance company, and they at the same time had a strategy where they would buy brokers, particularly in British Columbia, and basically convert them into an agency force. So they started to own their own distribution. For their own strategic reasons, a little over a year or so ago, they decided that they no longer wished to underwrite insurance, and they just wanted to focus on the sales distribution side of the business. So we were seen as a valued insurance partner with Westland, so they invited us plus a number of other insurance and reinsurance companies to subscribe to a program. So basically, they stopped underwriting business and they allowed us to take a 20% share in the business that they were writing, and we underwrite it now. And that caused the growth. So we went from having a share of a relatively small share in the brokers they owned to basically running 20% of the business that they collectively wrote. So it was a substantial increase in a short period of time.
And in the minister's remarks this morning, he indicated that commercial insurance was available in Ontario starting in January. And I know you might not have a whole lot of that data as of yet, but it's been quite a few months. So how is that going?
Overall, we've been growing faster than what we had budgeted for in Ontario, but it would be a combination of personal lines and commercial lines. So personal lines is auto and home insurance for residential customers, and of course commercial lines would be business insurance for small businesses. So the combination of both, we're doing quite well. We're getting good support from our brokers in Ontario, and it's one of our key diversification strategies.
And I noticed also that with the amount of premiums available in the other provinces, that Manitoba and BC did not have automobile premiums written in the past year. I'm sorry if I don't know exactly why, but can you give me an explanation for that?
So like Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and British Columbia have a Crown corporation that provides auto insurance to the residents. In both provinces, there is a somewhat competitive extension auto market, so it's the extra coverage above what you would get through plate insurance. We have the same program here in Saskatchewan. Because on the auto fund side, we collaborate both with Manitoba Public Insurance and the Insurance Corporation of British Columbia in BC. We chose not to write auto insurance, the top-up coverage in those 2 provinces. And the reality is both ICBC and MPI control 90% of that market. And even if we did decide to get into that business, it would be an uphill battle to write anything of any value.
And that's what I expected, but yeah, thank you. So the goal is to have $1 billion in direct premium written by 2020. I see here that in 2018, 2019, it was $919.4 million in direct premiums written. So what is the plan going forward to meet this $1 billion plan?
Basically, it's a continuation of what we have been doing in the last number of years, and it's a combination of good relationships with our brokers, who are our sales distribution force. In provinces like British Columbia and Ontario, it's appointing new brokers, so having more sales outlets available to us. It's offering competitively priced products and providing excellent service. So it's just basically doing the fundamentals of insurance and providing good service, quality products at a reasonable price. And it appears as though we should hit that $1 billion target about a year early.
That would be wonderful. Oh. So I'm going to comment on the President and Chair's message within the report here. I'll quote here: strong premium growth combined with investment earnings of $53.4 million resulted in a net profit of $48 million for SGI Canada for the year. The result was below plan and included a slight underwriting loss due to systematic problems in auto insurance in Alberta and Ontario. Can you explain this in a little bit more detail?
Certainly. So in Ontario and Alberta, auto insurance is provided through the private sector. So there are a number of companies that offer auto insurance, and there are regulatory mechanisms that each province has in place to control prices and the product. And unfortunately, in both provinces, the industry is subject to what are known as underwriting cycles. So the industry fluctuates between insurance companies wanting to write lots of business and being really competitive, to the opposite side where companies are losing money and want to increase rates as fast as possible to try and get back to profitability. And unfortunately, it cycles over a number of years. And unfortunately, in Ontario and Alberta, due to a number of different factors, both those markets were in the bad part of the underwriting cycle, where the regulators were limiting rate increases that insurance companies required in order to provide a reasonable level of profitability. And so insurance companies were doing things in those markets to try and slow down the volume of business. So it was kind of unusual that both provinces at about the same time would have profitability issues, but as you know, as a player in those markets, we're subject to the same swings that the competitive market goes through, and because we have a stable force of brokers, we need to support them during these tough times. So we weren't making the level of profitability that we would have normally have liked to in that product line in both of those provinces.
And again, I'm still trying to learn all of these policies and that we have, but my understanding is that Coachman is the auto insurance company in Ontario that SGI Canada now owns, right?
We actually have two companies that underwrite insurance in Ontario. So Coachman is one, and SGI Canada Insurance Services Limited is the other. So Coachman Insurance in Ontario specializes in what's known as non-standard or high-risk automobile insurance. So in Ontario, if you have too many speeding tickets, too many at-fault accidents, perhaps an impaired driving charge, you're still required by law to purchase insurance, but the standard insurance market really isn't interested in the risk that you present as a customer. So there's another market called the non-standard or high-risk market that specializes in those drivers who have poor driving experience. Coachman is a specialist insurance company that focuses in on those higher risk drivers. So in Ontario, when we go and sign up a broker as a sales partner, we can offer them Coachman Insurance to cover off their customers who have poor driving experience, but we also offer them SGI Canada coverage for their standard or their preferred markets. So our broker force likes that model because we offer a wide underwriting risk appetite for their customers. And the whole thing with non-standard or the coachman market is basically the model is you're looking for repenters, not repeaters. So you're looking for people who have a bad driving record, who aren't happy about it, and actually want to pay less for insurance. And that's how you work in that market.
Okay. And so did you see a loss with both of these insurances with the auto industry?
Jeff Steppen. So yes, in Alberta, we had an underwriting loss of $24.1 million, and in Ontario, we had a $10.6 million underwriting loss.
And do you have a breakdown of what that underwriting loss would be with regards to the Coachman and the SGI Canada aspect? Or?
Yeah, Coachman was an additional $13.2 million loss. So the Ontario number was just SGI Canada.
Okay, thank you. And you also have a goal of, here it says in 2018-19, you had 942,709 customers, and the goal is to go to 991,000 in 2019-2020. How are you with achieving this goal, and what plans do you have to achieve this goal?
I don't have an exact number for you, but given that we're on track or ahead of plan on our premium growth number, it means we're writing more customers all the time. So I'm reasonably confident we're on track to hit our targets with respect to the number of customers as well.
And just a question. I know I myself have a few different policies within SGI Canada. So would I be considered as one customer, or each policy then I become multiple customers?
One customer.
Okay. Thanks. And also, SGI Canada introduced the Cyber One and data compromise coverages as part of the commercial line discussed for November 1st, 2018. Can you give me an update on how that is going?
Again, I don't have any numbers in terms of policies or premium that have been written. We do that through a partnership with a company that specializes in that type of business. The main reason we wanted to offer cyber coverage in the first place is that given the publicity around some fairly high-profile hacking incidents around the world, our commercial customers and our brokers are asking questions about the coverage. So in order to stay competitive in the markets in which we operate, we needed to offer a coverage. I would say when you have specialized programs like this, it's quite common for a company like ours to leverage the expertise of another company that specializes in this business, and that's what we did in this case. So basically, we are providing a product for our brokers and our customers, but the risk is being transferred back to a company that we're doing partnership with.
And which company would this be?
It's a company that's part of Munich Reinsurance Group. It's the Boiler and Inspection Company of Canada of all names.
And also, with regards to customer satisfaction, I know you have a survey and ability to receive that feedback. So can you provide me potentially the top 3 issues that customers might have with regards to being completely satisfied with services?
I certainly remember one was ease of use of our websites. And in the last several years, we've undertaken to revamp all of our websites to make sure that there's less insurance jargon, the navigation search criteria is a lot better, updated so that they're mobile friendly, those sorts of things. So that was certainly one key rub point that we had with customers. And if you give me a minute, we'll think of the other two. The other main area of concern from customers was our speed of responsiveness in things like returning phone calls and settling claims and that sort of thing. And that's partly why Penny talked about what initiatives we're undertaking in the auto fund as an example in terms of trying to improve and respond to our customers' expectations on the claim side.
And do you keep track on wait times for payout of benefits once a claim has been approved?
Yes, we have reporting. We have what we call a work in progress report that all of our management can monitor productivity of incoming claims, outgoing claims. For auto, it's pretty slick. We can turn things around pretty quickly. When it goes to a complex claim, if it's a total loss, for example, sometimes it takes a little longer because we have to work with the customer to settle on a value of the vehicle. But we do have, because of our customer focus, we try and specialize and get the training and turn it around as quickly as we can. So we do monitor that. On the injury side, the injury files are very complex, and a lot of times, because the goal of our injury program is to rehabilitate and get people back to as much as possible to back to their livelihoods, and sometimes those files can be complicated, and we require medical consultation on how we pay. So that one's a little more complicated, but the other complication we have on the injury side is with the HIPAA, the health privacy regulations, we're still kind of dealing in paper. With our new technologies, we're working to use cloud and introduce more security, so we'll get more efficient at that on the injury side as well.
I know as the critic of social services as well, but SGI, the majority of the cases that come to our office with concerns is with regards to the coverage for house insurance and getting the compensation back from the benefits that once their claim has been approved but receiving the money to get the stuff back, whether it's a break-in or if it was a house fire, being able to move forward from that. There's been long wait times, and of course the cases that we hear about are probably the more extreme and the longer wait times. And that's why I was wondering if there was some information with regards to wait times that you had of how long a lot of people generally have to wait to get that benefit to them, and if you guys were working on reducing those wait times.
We are working on reducing wait times. We did a series of town halls across Saskatchewan this fall where we went out and listened to our staff, and on the SGI Canada property side, so home insurance, we did hear from our claims staff about volumes of claims and that sort of thing. So we've instituted a program to hire more claims adjusters. Part of the issue you have on property insurance is it's either feast or famine. So if we have a heavy storm year, we don't have enough staff to handle all the claims that come in because there's a glut of them. And in those cases, we leverage independent adjusters, outside firms that operate in Saskatchewan to help us settle those extra claims volumes as part of our solution as well. The other aspect in Saskatchewan, is when you're dealing with, just as Penny said, when you're dealing with more complex claims, it sometimes takes a period of time to come to an agreement with the customer as to the exact value of the damage that the home may have incurred. And oftentimes, I'd say the complaints we get is that the customer's not satisfied either with the value that we believe is fair and reasonable in terms of repairing the damage. They may not be happy with the contractor that they actually select, but they may not be happy with the quality of repairs. That does happen as well. Sometimes, again, depending on the economic climate, it's difficult for us to get contractors to do it. Currently, I don't think that's an issue, but it does come up from time to time. If contractors are busy, we are dependent on those third-party contractors to go in and repair homes, and sometimes it's difficult to get the people to come in on a timely basis. So there are definitely a number of factors. The one area we can control is our staffing levels, and we've been actively looking at it based on feedback we've been receiving from our claims staff.
Okay, that's good, good information to have, so we could pass that along to individuals who contact us. My understanding is when a customer applies for SGI insurance coverage, they're asked if the broker can submit a credit check. And then, as my understanding is that the better of a credit rating that you have, then potentially the better insurance premium rates that you can have. When did this practice start?
I don't know the exact date, but it's 3 or 4 years ago. And I can clarify that if you would like.
For sure.
So it's quite common in home insurance across Canada for insurance companies to offer discounts to customers who have a good credit score. And there's been numerous studies done that show an extremely strong correlation between credit score and the likelihood of having a claim. It's often misconstrued to be a link between wealth and credit score, but credit score truly is a person living within their means. And while we can't prove this, the thinking is that a person who manages their means well, lives within their means, is more likely to maintain their home in a fashion, make sure that snow's cleared away from the edge of the house, make sure they have downspouts, that sort of thing. So there's an extremely strong correlation between credit score and the likelihood of presenting a claim. And in a competitive insurance market in which SGI Canada operates, there are discounts available for good credit scores that could be upwards of 10, 15, 20%. It's that strong of an indicator of the likelihood of having a claim. The way we use credit score is, as a consumer, you do not have to grant us that. And if other aspects of your home are acceptable to us, we will offer you a premium for that risk. If you choose, at your choice, to agree to a credit score, and you have to sign off on that, it's declared on the application. If you agree to it, then we will run that credit score, and you're not surcharged for that credit score, but you're eligible for a discount if it's a good one.
And so this is done when you apply for the insurance. Is it done every year that you renew your insurance?
Do you know? Honestly, I'm not sure if it's done every renewal or not. I'm quite certain we have a program, but I could not say for certain if it's every renewal.
Okay, because a person's credit score could
change over time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Safety in the workplace. I know SGI was named as one of the safest employers, which was good. And so I'm wondering, how have you guys maintained this rating?
We just won the silver award this year for safety. Last year we won the gold award, so someone beat us out this year. But we've been working very diligently with our safety team inside our organization to ensure that we're taking care inside the company as well as out. And I think we've just adopted a very practical approach to helping our managers be mindful of safety on a day-to-day basis in a way that in a way that is practical for them and for their business. And we've done that by partnering very closely with the business to understand the work that they do every day.
Do you provide some incentives to employees with regards to their safety rating?
We have a small budget where we recognize employees for safe behavior, but it isn't an incentive program. We do it more from a perspective of being able to tell and share stories within the organization of people who have taken proactive measures to address safety and who are mindful of that, so that other employees can see themselves in that behavior.
Well, with noticing the time, Mr. Chair, I'm going to just give some final remarks. I just want to again thank the officials for being here today and answering the questions. I hope after being in this role for about a year, I had maybe more relevant questions this time. And it's always fascinating to learn more about the business that you guys do each and every day. And I want to thank you for what you do. And I know that even on a global scale, the work that SGI employees do really make us shine well. And so I want to thank you again for all the work that you guys do, and thank you for answering my questions today.
Well, thank you. Minister, do you have any closing remarks?
Just a brief remark. I want to thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank the members for their questions. Well, actually, the member for her questions, and answered for always being there and controlling the button, even though Quay kept hitting it and trying to confuse her. We're working with them. We're working with them. And thanks to my officials, who I do believe do a phenomenal job at SGI. It is a pride in the industry. It's a pride for us in Saskatchewan, the work that they do. And when we compare them to other insurance companies, especially other Crown Corporation companies, SGI shines far and above everyone else. And so I'd like to thank them as well. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, thank you. I will now ask a member to move that we conclude consideration of 2018-19 SGI Canada Annual Report, 2018-19 Saskatchewan Auto Fund Annual Report, consideration of the 2018 SGI Canada Insurance Services Limited Annual Report, consideration of the 2018 Coachman Insurance Company Annual Report, consideration of the 2018 SGI Superannuation Plan Annual Report. Mr. Nerline has moved to conclude consideration. Is that agreed? Carried. This concludes our business for this morning. And thank you, Ms. Reinhardt, for all your questions. And seeing that we have no further business today, I will ask a member to move a motion of adjournment. Mr. Blanc so moves. Is that agreed? Carried. This committee stands adjourned to the call of the chair.